You're listening to Never Off Duty. This episode, which is going to be the first episode of the new year, if you're listening chronologically, this is so we're going to call this a new season. If you're looking for old stuff, you got to go to the old season. And we are joined by Chief Golemme, which I think I nailed the name.
You did,
and I nailed the rank.
Yes, sir.
Off mic, I demoted you to lieutenant, and I apologize.
It's all good.
So this is something very important to Clay County, but I think it also applies to people across the nation because we do have listeners that aren't in Clay County. And it involves our schools and our transition here in Clay County from having its own school board police to bringing it back to the sheriff's office.
Yes, sir.
And for me, from an outsider looking in, I'm very happy about this change. And I think two parts. One is I just think everybody feels good about your sheriff controlling your, watching after your schools. And two, unfortunately, what I often see, unfortunately when there's a tragedy, but fortunately when there is, nationwide, the best results seem to be when the sheriff and a good sheriff is involved. And I know here in Clay County, if something goes wrong, that's who I want responding. I'm not saying anything but negative about our school board police who served us, but I'm saying I just happen to know you.
Yeah, there's that level of comfort, I guess, or understanding of how the sheriff's office works. I think that people get to see us on a more regular basis, and I totally agree with you. This isn't about the men and women who were working there. They did a fine job, and we hope that they continue to do that fine job moving forward. But I think the people probably just have that level of comfort with the sheriff, who is probably more omnipresent at that level, right, and more known as an entity or a commodity. So Chief Wagner and his team over there did an outstanding job, and we hope to continue that and see where we can even make some strides as we move forward. But I think this will give people a sense of peace about everything.
Right. Absolutely. And I do think too, if the worst happened, the reality is in most places in the United States, sheriff's getting called. Even if there is another, because you'll have more training, experience, resources, it seems like.
Absolutely.
That would be the no-brainer. And I'm not saying just for school stuff, but usually any situation that escalates, that's when you bring in, I'm not saying the big guns, but I mean, you're pretty.
Well, yeah, it's I guess literally and figuratively the big guns, right? But I think what it comes down to is just resources, and right, smaller agencies don't necessarily have the options for all the same resources. So this is like a force multiplier, and you're right. When something goes really bad, then we are involved in that, where we are a force multiplier for smaller agencies. So this way we take our resources, we come in there, we have the training and experience to help them as they do as well, but we come in there and kind of accentuate their response, and we're able to help them. And sometimes when need be, we would take something over. So there's a lot that goes into how you make the sausage. There's right, a lot that goes into that. And I think it's important that you have the resources and the people resources, the human resources, and also the equipment and the training experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're in charge of the transition.
Yes.
And do you want to walk us through that? How would you like to talk about that?
So this thing kind of gained inertia really quickly. So once the school board decided, they had the vote, and the school board decided that the sheriff's office would assume control over the operations of the school, we began the process. It's actually a lot like a duck on the water. The top part looks calm, but that bottom part, so our feet are scurrying underneath, and it's been a really big partnership. And I've got a lot of respect for the folks that we're working with the school board, the school district, the Clay County School District Police Department, and then our team from the sheriff's office. A lot of work has gone into this, and also the Board of County Commissioners, so we've had people from every area working together. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of moving parts. So the first thing we had to do was create transition teams on every side, and then we're working out the contract as we speak. So we got the first draft earlier this week, and the plan is to go through the finer points of the contract. We'll have a operational component, and then we'll have some logistical stuff, and then also the financial component, obviously. And our goal here is to make sure that we're as accurate as possible. We're counting every dollar. We want to make sure that whatever we can do to save the taxpayers any additional funding as part of this transition, we do that. But we don't want to cut our own throats, so to speak,
Right.
where we shortchange ourselves on the transition aspect. So it's kind of a fine line we have to walk right here, and we want to make sure we get it. It's unfortunate. In this case, we have to get it done quickly, and we have to get it done right. So I always make the joke, it's like getting a Ruth Chris steak through the drive-thru of Burger King, So you want that high quality, but you need it quick,
Right. That's
so
funny. I like that analogy.
no big deal, right? Piece
Right.
of cake. So,
Yeah.
And we're working on it right now. So we started with extending. We had some meetings with the school district. The school district police officer. We met with them on 2 occasions. Once at a training event at Ridgeview High School, and then once separately on their property, where the sheriff and key members of the transition team were there to answer questions. We shortly thereafter opened up a portal just for school officers to put in to transition to come over to us. Every one of them were offered at face value the opportunity to put in, and then we would begin a modified process of bringing them over to the sheriff's office. Right now, we're working on the nuances of what the training is going to look like, and we haven't completely closed in on that yet. We do have some time on that, but we're putting our heads together on what that training will look like. We have a short window. Their last day in their current contract is going to be the end of June, and then we take over
okay.
July
So
1st.
it's not like, and again, if you're listening to this, we're recording right before Christmas, and this is going to go live right at the first of the year, just kind of in case you hear us referencing a time frame there of Christmas of 2023, if you're really listening in the future, which happens. I'm always surprised. Like, people will go back, to the beginning of last year and start listening, which is great. I mean, there's tons of information, but so you've got till June, and that is so it's right now we're looking at 6.5 months,
right? And we take over July 1st as official. A contract ends June 30th. We take over July 1, and then school begins. I think it's August 13th. I believe is the first.
Which actually works out well that it starts in the middle of summer too, because you have some more transition time before students show up for the most part.
Yeah, and then of course we have to run everybody through all that process. They're going to have the backgrounds done and all the stuff that we normally do to make sure that we stay consistent with our sheriff's office standards. And a lot of the officers who have shown interest in coming over have already worked with us in the past. So it's kind of a homecoming. And, for those people who don't know, the sheriff's office historically had control over the policing in schools. It's had different variations over the year, from when we might have been in every school to where we were only in junior and senior high schools to where we had the DARE program back in the day and things of that nature. But this us being in the school is not a new concept. However, after the passing of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, the rules have changed significantly. So I had spent 3 different tours over the schools, twice as a sergeant and once as a lieutenant. And we didn't have those requirements. It was a much, for lack of a better term, much looser environment in terms of how we allocated personnel and how we responded to things. But after what happened in South Florida and after the passing of the act, we were really required to have a certain amount of things that have to get done. There's a lot of reporting elements. There's audits. There's different kinds of meetings that deputies are going to have to attend, about threat assessments and things of that nature. So it's a much different world. And we're really excited about having the members come over from the school district police, because they are the up-to-date subject matter experts about how it gets done every day. So this is really cool, because we take the ones who previously worked for us and come back so they get our culture, but now they may have not worked under Sheriff Cook. So now they get a chance to work together, where we combine our current staff with the people coming back over, and we'll have people bringing our culture from the sheriff's office to the bunch coming over from the school district. The school district's going to show us the ropes on what they were doing over there. And I think it's going to provide a really great environment for the children and for people at schools, because you're going to get the best of both worlds.
Right.
And the officers have that opportunity, as long as everything goes well. If they want to stay in their same school, they could stay in their same school. So they won't see the change. I mean, we're even giving them a lot of the same equipment, just a different color.
Right.
Nice green instead of, we don't want blue, right? So
yeah, Sheriff's Scream. So I get asked. In fact, it was funny because I mentioned the podcast last night at dinner, and the first question that somebody asked, because they're like, "Oh, what's your next episode?" And I said, "Oh, we're going to talk about the transition." And very first question was, "How does that look like in the school? Is there?" And y'all might not know this yet. Maybe it's law. I don't know, because I'm not in law enforcement. But is it? planned yet? Is it law? Is there what's the for the makeup of? Is there an officer in every school? How does that work? Or are you allowed to talk about it? Because I know there's always some safety concerns about you don't want to give away,
So let's just say there needs to be someone who's armed in every school, from bell to bell, as long as there's a child in the school.
Okay.
There has to be someone who's armed. So there's different forms that could take, and that's where some of the other layers come into play, where we have guardians who work in some of the schools who will not look like the deputies, and they're not even employed by the sheriff's office. They're employed by the school district. So we train them at the sheriff's office, but they are hired by the school district.
Right.
So that's one of the unusual little features, but there will be, as long as there's a child in school, from bell to bell, you will have an officer or you have someone who's armed on the property.
And that's one of the it's not a debate from a standpoint of nobody wants to protect children. The debate is often what's the best way to protect children,
right.
and that's you look at countries especially that have dealt with this, and that constant is it better to have somebody in a uniform, ununiformed, yada yada, and that's just another complexity to this whole thing of
right.
studying through all this data to try to do what's best for the safety of the children.
And there's advocates on both sides of the coin. There's people who say that and I see all sides of it, by the way, so not to be flippy-floppy about it, but you could see the value in every viewpoint, and the fact that does every school child need to see a uniform presence in the school to feel safe, and should they? And there's the ideal world, the world in which I grew up in, I feel like I'm ancient these days, but in my school it was noticeable if a police officer showed up.
Oh yeah,
I went to school in New York, and we never saw the cops at the school, so to have officers in school was unique to me when I moved here to Florida and became a law enforcement officer. I do see, but on the positive side, as we relate, you want to talk about ground level community policing, to have that officer be seen by children every day. Some of these schools have 1,000 kids, 1,200 kids in them. For them to have a personal relationship, and see an officer for more than just a guy with a gun and a badge or a woman with a gun and a badge is huge.
It is.
That's how you build these relationships, and you build trust and you build understanding, and they get to see the officer as a human being. And then the officers get reminded that the kids are just kids. So it's mutually beneficial. So I do like the idea of having that uniform presence, but it is weird not weird. It's difficult to have these discussions in terms of where we're at as a society, that we have to have these kind of discussions. But since we are here where we are, what we want to do is be the best that we can be at it. And we're darn good at it. So, how we relate with the public, even, at any level, from children to adult, and how we do our jobs, we are very professional, and we're bringing over some very professional men and women. So the product's going to be outstanding.
Well, great. That's great. I know you got some sheets, so don't let me, I don't want to derail us too much if there's
Oh, I'm just one of those guys. Just in case.
No, that's great. So transition wise, we're now, like I said, it's the middle of summer so like I said, recording wise, about 6.5 months away. What are the steps next? You kind of, I know you alluded, so the people who are currently there are applying to either transfer over. When do you know roughly when they're going to find out? Is that, and again, you might not be able to say because there's hiring.
It's not, well, what it comes down to is it's just going to be about how fast we can get everything done. So we want to do it right.
Because you got to do new training.
Well, first thing we have to do is we have to get them high. So they have to do all the backgrounds, psychological, whatever testing we have to do. We'll have to go through all that, polygraph, things of that nature. Once we get them through all that. So that's why we open the portal now, so they can do that. Once there's a certain point that we'll offer them a conditional offer of employment. And that lets them know that if you finish this stuff, then you will be coming to the Clay County Sheriff's Office. And once they get through the process where we know they passed that background, then we're going to move to the next level, which is getting all their gear ready and preparing for the training component. And we're working on something with the school district, which is pretty exciting. And like, again, they've been wonderful partners in this transition, and I'm thankful for that. Superintendent Broski's been amazing. Coincidentally, I actually got to work with David Broski back in the days when I was the sergeant over the unit the first time. And I don't remember if he was an assistant principal at that time. So he's definitely come a long way. And we met over at Clay High back in the day when Pete McCabe was a principal over there. And, we have a really good working relationship, and he's been great about, getting with me and trying to further this process and be a part of this positively. So what we're going to do is coordinate a kind of a training transition. They usually meet at the end of the year for all their training, and we're going to work on getting some of our training done in advance with them, where we'll be part of that process, so that when they come in, because you talk about a window, we have roughly 8 to 10 weeks from the day their contract ends to like the first day of school, where we're going to have to really get everything done. That's going to include all our high liabilities and all of our internal stuff that we have to do, a partial field training introduction, so to speak, and then get them out there on the streets. So,
well, and from a citizen standpoint, I feel very confident because I've got I've been privileged to sit on this side of the mic and talk to y'all and see how competent and professional. And I'm not saying other forces aren't, but I mean, Clay County Sheriff's Office is well equipped to do this, quite honestly, a difficult transition. It's anytime you're absorbing another agency, that's not easy. And
it's crazy difficult. Yeah. And we, first of all, obviously always want to brag on your own people, but I got a little social media brouhaha over someone when I said our training unit was, the best in the biz. And, first of all, I think you have to have that belief in your people anyway. And we just have some really talented people. And I had a 2-year stint where I ran the training unit, and I firsthand got to see the work that they do, how they interact with the people, how they're able to help people get through some difficult parts, how they really strive to find the most innovative training opportunities. Here at Clay County Sheriff's Office, we try to be ahead of the curve. We try to be that tip of the spear. We don't wait till everybody else does it and then try to mimic that. We like to see a trend in advance and actually start doing it. And I think we've really done a good job. I think our people are among the best trained and equipped law enforcement, especially for an agency of our size. We don't have the resources of somewhere like Jacksonville, but we do the very best of what we have. And I think it's a product that I've been proud for the last 27 years to be a part of,
Right. Well, and I'm always amazed too, again, because we're not a big city. We're a very great county, growing county too, but it always amazes me the amount of training, because I'll be talking to somebody and then I'll find out they've got homeland experience, homeland experience, there's all these counter-terror, you're going, really, here? I mean, it's something that we've talked about this, that we're probably hopefully never going to witness here. But if we do, we probably have somebody that's got some experience or trained with the right people to get us through the crisis point when when things are going off around us, and
it's huge. I think the expression is what the body never goes where the mind has never been, or something to that effect. I'm sure I murdered that, but the idea being that if you don't expose people to these things, then when the moment happens and it's the first time they see it, that's where you have that. Where instead of something being a response that's really quick and it's really natural, that's where you have that hesitation, because they have to process what they're seeing, come up with a list of solutions on how they're going to do it. Like if you're that Terminator movie, they'll pick list of different, so they would have to spend that extra time thinking, where now by exposing them to some of these concepts and these training opportunities, they just get to go into action.
Right.
He who hesitates is lost type of thing. So I think that really bodes well for us. And, Sheriff Cook and Under Sheriff Lenve are always looking for the newest, greatest thing in our training unit. Again, they're out there searching. And sometimes you almost have to say, well, we can't do that right now because everything costs a lot of money. Yeah. But we have to balance that. What's good for us economically, what's great for us for safety. And I tell you what, Sheriff Cook is really committed to it. And we've really done a good job of, especially with things like emergency management, or emergency preparedness is the term we prefer here, but that kind of mindset, so that when it happens, we're just rolling it out seamlessly.
Right. Well, in a few episodes teasing there, we're gonna talk about the Clay County Fair again. But for those of you who heard the last podcast last year about the Clay County Fair, one of the things that amazed me is the scenarios, and one of them was, what if there's a mass outbreak of stomach? Everybody ate something bad there,
Right.
and it's like just that kind of thinking of, because it could happen, and you don't want to be in the middle of it. And look, you'll never think of everything. That's something that I think is the hardest part for people who are preparing is you can think of every scenario and there's always one you didn't think of,
Right.
but it's your mind is getting in that process of thinking of how to, you can say this happened, what's the most similar, and start to formulate a new plan. But again, I'm like I said, from a citizen, I'm constantly amazed what we do here. It's pretty amazing. So I have a question about transition. So are the current school board police, do they all have to go to their own academy? Is it so is that already taken care of, or do some of them have to go to academy now? How does that work?
Well, they're all certified law enforcement officers. As a matter of fact, they have a tremendous amount of experience over there.
Yeah.
A lot of them were retired from other agencies. When I got a chance to meet them and we got to see some of their experience, it's not uncommon. I think they have several that are over 30 years experience. But I would say from just a quick glance at looking at the numbers, I would say pretty comfortable 15 to 20 years is their experience level at other agencies, some of them even larger agencies than what that we are, like Jacksonville and places in South Florida, et cetera. So they are all certified. It's just that internally we have a policy that we train people. We call it the Clay way, and we're proud of that though, because, one of the things that from the time I got here in 1996, there is definitely a different way we do things here in Clay County. And every sheriff has upheld that tradition, and each sheriff has had a different take on it. But the number one thing we talk about is service to the community. And that has never changed. And it's definitely been accentuated with Sheriff Cook in the sense that that is a non-negotiable, we are a service. And I think sometimes when we get the people who come from other agencies, they're surprised at what we'll do for a shoplifter that other agencies wouldn't do. Like there's no too small of a crime. There's no, it's just this, or it's just a misdemeanor shoplifting or something. We give it 100%. So as we look into the future with the school transition and stuff, what we want to do is we want to be prepared for anything, and we want to be ready for anything. So there is no too small of a thing that we have to do. And being with the kids and working with the teachers and the administrators in the schools, helping the parents out, calming their concerns and being transparent with our information and forthcoming. And that's going to be another dynamic that we have to work on, is that the school has obligations on how they report stuff to the family members or of the students. Right. And then we have ways that we release information to the public, and we want to make that gel so that everyone's getting the same information about the same time, the same way, and it's a consistent message. And that's going to be the stuff that we're going to hammer out. That will be that once we have the contract signed, before everybody comes over, that'll be that part that we work on. So we'll do the field training program with them when they come over. They'll get to learn the Clay way, and then school will be starting pretty much thereafter. So they'll get their assignments. We're actually looking at a possibility of even having a field training officer in the schools with them for a few days, maybe. We're kicking around a lot of ideas, so this is just kind of like hot off the press. But we're thinking maybe we'll put a field training officer in with for the first 4 days or so, where they get a chance to firsthand observe them and get a sense of who they are as a person, as a worker, police officer, and that kind of thing, and make sure that they're consistent with our values, as an agency. Mm-hmm. So
that's great, and I really do believe that type of attitude that you were talking about with the service to the community has a lot to do. I mean, Clay County is filled with great people that support law enforcement. That is true, but it goes both ways. We see it from our side. The reality is, if we didn't have a great law enforcement agency, we might have a different feeling towards it if it was all of our equipment falls over in the room. No, the table's not locked down today.
Here.
It starts with school too. Like you were saying, like the great thing about having great law enforcement on campus is, as a kid grows up, they appreciate it. And it continues as you're an adult, where you go, when I see a Clay County Sheriff's officer helping somebody change a tire, I'm going, well, that's just, I'm a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. So I'm like, that's what, I get it.
That's the thing.
But it's a service. And and honestly, there's probably times when it's a pain, but yet I've never not seen it happen. And it's pretty amazing.
I think for some of us, so a lot of the leaders in this agency have been around for some time. And for those of us who've been around, like I've been, those of us who work for like Scott Lancaster when he was sheriff, the rule was like if you went past a car that was stopped on the side of the road, you had to answer to that. Or if you got caught speeding, he used to say you have to have a quarter in your pocket to get a ride home. So there were expectations, we pride ourselves on that. Like as we drive by that car that's stuck on the side of the road, what if that was our wives or our daughters or our son, whoever, our mothers? So we want to make sure, or even a brother, we want to make sure that we stop and make sure they're okay. And that's that kind of level of service. We really pride ourselves on that here. And I know that most people who do this job, we certainly don't do it for the fame or the fortune. But, I heard on your other podcasts, so I went back and listened. But, where you talked about things about like how the community, I can't stress enough how much support we get from the community. It's kind of symbiotic. It's like, which came first, the chicken egg? Did they support us or we support them? But it's like this continuous circle where, we take care of them, they take care of us. And it's like just this unspoken agreement.
Right.
The people in this county are amazing. I stayed for all these years, even though there was other opportunities otherwhere, because this is such a unique place. Some really great people are being policed by some really great people, and this relationship is awesome. And you could really see that every man and woman at the Clay County Sheriff's Office, from the person who answers that switchboard call to the person who files the report and records, is 100% committed to serving.
That's great. That's true. So before we take our first break, I'm going to remind our listeners, you can, not first break, or probably our only break, since we're halfway through, sheriff@claysheriff.com, especially if you have a question about this. You could put podcast, you can put, school, whatever you want to put in the title. If you want to, because we'll have a few more episodes before probably ton more than 6 before the transition happens. So if you have questions, send them in and we'll try to get them answered. That's a much easier way to get your question answered, to be honest with you.
Right.
You send that email in, get your question answered. And, if we need to talk about it on the show again, we will, because there's a lot going on here. And, let's take a quick break and we'll be back. Remember to share this, podcast with people on all major podcast forums, and you can also just go to the sheriff's webpage to listen to it. So you're listening to Never Off Duty. Okay, we are back to Never Off Duty. Something we talked about off mic, very important to clarify, is the sheriff does have a commitment, though, to the people of Clay County, and that is regarding, I'll let you.
So the sheriff is committed to having a uniformed deputy sheriff in every school. So when we were talking about that earlier, we discussed like the legal
right
guidelines that, statutorily we have to have an armed person, but Sheriff Cook's commitment, say that fast 5 times. Her commitment to this is to have a uniform officer in every school. So deputy sheriff, Clay County, recognizable Clay County deputy sheriff with a marked unit out front. And that's the plan moving forward, so that it's very clear that there's going to be one of our best in that building.
So we're going to find out how many people stayed through the break when they emailed that question, but hopefully they did. And to clarify that. So, but speaking of the Guardians, though, I don't think people realize how much training they have. Can you talk about that briefly? Because I think some of the people that are on the fence about Guardians might not realize that there's significant amount of training involved in that.
So now I know their
qualifications, I should say.
Their firearms qualifications are handled by the sheriff's office, and I believe we're talking upwards of 166 hours of firearms training that they must pass to be deemed, acceptable as a guardian, there's probably other training qualifications or standards that the school safety department has, and they would probably they'll run them through that part before they put them in place. So again, the guardians are school district employees, whereas the sheriff's officer obviously are employees of Sheriff Cook. So they do get a significant amount of firearms training, and by our training staff. So they're ready.
And to clarify, some of this I should mention we talked a little bit off mic, and there's some of it for safety and reasons we can't go into it. We don't want the bad elements to know some of the.
Yeah, we need a few secrets.
Yeah, but let's just say I'm very pleased by some of the things that I've heard that I'm allowed to hear. So it's not that
Be rest assured that if there's a guardian in place, the guardian is well trained and prepared to do what they need to do, and the district has full faith in them. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the school district, but they wouldn't hire someone they wouldn't keep someone if they didn't believe in them. But we wouldn't say they were capable if they couldn't pass our training course. We wouldn't allow them to get through.
Right, and that is a lot of firearm training. I mean, that is.
I think it's about a month.
It's
a month straight, just out there doing what they do.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling. I know people that hunt with less experience. So.
Make sure I'm not with you when we're with them. But, yeah.
But that's, honestly, I know people that are really good shots that don't put that much time into their training. So that's that is significant. So one of the questions people ask is, what happens when there is no school? How does that work?
Good question. Yeah, so the idea is that in the agreement that the sheriff made with the school board was that whatever we do with the officers on the off time would be related to schools or related to children. So we have our police athletic league and we have other activities. There's also sometimes, like in the summer breaks, there's summer schools, or there's programs where they have breakfast or lunch opportunities. So anytime there's going to be a child in the school, we'll have deputies that will be in that role or be in the school. So they'll be, whatever they do in that off time will be connected to their service to the district. And then we also take that opportunity. That's where they could take their vacation, because obviously we have to have them in the school. So when the school breaks are there, that's a chance for them to get a day off or two, spend some time with their family, because they probably have children who are going to school as well. So hopefully they get to take that time and get a little break, regenerate a little bit, a little family time, and come back and be more charged to do their job. So you figure between some vacation time, some mandatory training requirements, maybe some advanced training opportunities, and then also working with the kids in other capacities, they're going to be pretty full. Because you figure you're talking, 8 to 10 weeks, from when school stops to when school starts again. Maybe it's 12. Don't hold me to the exact number, but we're going to make sure that anything that we need to do, whether it's statutorily or by our policy, we're going to take that opportunity to get them up to speed. And certainly if we see some innovative training, or maybe there's a conference that we could send some to, that's where we take those opportunities to do that. So they'll be busy.
That's great. That's a very good way to handle that. I'm glad y'all thought of that. So, but it brings up a question for me, and I'm going to throw you completely under the bus here, because you're not knowing this is coming. Right. I know, like, for example, the way it works now, like if you are in narcotics, and, there's a path if you want to go into cyber or whatever. There's always a path to transition to something else. It seems like that there's a lot of that going on. Is there a path, like if somebody goes, I've been in narcotics, because I just said that, that's what's in my mind. But I'm feeling a calling to doing this. Is there a path to go forward to that? And is there a path for them, for the ones coming over that are going to be in the schools to go, maybe it's time for me to try something else? Or have y'all even thought about that? I know
we have. So internally we posted, I think, if it wasn't yesterday, because today's Friday. So I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday. We posted internally for any of our personnel who are interested in coming over. I think the last count I had for officers transitioning over was 34. So 34 of the current officers have expressed an interest to come over. So what we need to do is try and start seeing who internally might be interested. So we just opened that avenue. Probably in a few weeks, probably right after the holidays, I'll have a much better idea where we stand. And so that will give our internal people a chance to slide over. And I'll also say this, not terribly related, but kind of. Then once we know how many we need, we'll go externally to other experienced SROs and direct hire them into that role as a school resource officer for us in that effort to get every school filled by August 13th. So in regards to the members coming over, I am communicating with them via memo about every other week, just giving them updates on what's going on. They also have my contact information, and we've had phone calls, and I'm setting up meetings with them as time permits, individually, just to work with them. I want to make sure they understand what's going on, but we did send out an opportunity for them to be a part of the promotional process and what that's going to look like. So, because, people wonder what's going to happen with those sergeants and lieutenants, and are they going to get to keep their jobs, and what about the other officers, and what can we do? So we put a team together of our best minds and me, and we talked about what that would look like, and we came up with what we believe is the most fair to all parties involved. And there was a video that was sent out internally to Sheriff's Office members from Sheriff Cook, Under Sheriff Lenve, and myself, and then there was a memo sent to the school district police officers about how they could go about the promotional process and be a part of that. So that again goes to the melding of the two entities to make into one group. I think what's going to happen for them, and the finer details have not been put into place yet, because this is obviously step one.
Right. Yeah.
Let's get them in and get this done.
It just got voted on, people, if you're not too long ago. So, I mean, the change.
It's been weeks.
Yeah.
So this has been pretty quick moving. I would say the goal would be eventually that they would be just like every other employee that we have, every sworn officer, where they have that opportunity to move. But what we're going to have to do is get them into the agency, get them up to get everything done, check all the boxes that we do for all of our current members, and then once they've met those goals, like a full field training and things of that nature, that will be when they have that opportunity. But certainly our goal would be, if they say they're going to be in the school year starting 24, 25, they'll stay in the school for at least that school year. But maybe at the end of the year, we start looking at opportunities for them to move. That has not been set in concrete yet, but it would be reasonable. That would be the future for that. We would want people to feel free to move amongst the areas, whether it's at a line level or a supervisory level.
Right. Oh, that's great. That's great. And I think that's worked well for Clay County. I mean, I from a CEO perspective of looking at companies, it's always good to have people that have experienced different parts of the company.
Oh, yeah.
It brings fresh ideas. It does, and I've talked to the leadership, and that seems to be, everybody seems to think that way, and I'm sure there's merit to the other way, but I like this way.
Well, this job is very complex. There's no one way to do it. There are some things that are just. They are non-negotiable things that police officers do every day. There's a lot of room on how that gets done. And I think, as someone personally who I've done just about everything in 32 years of law enforcement that I could do, I think there's one or two assignments I haven't had specifically, but I've had visibility to. That makes things easier for me to understand. Like every bit of this, I think I've heard people, on your podcast, and we refer all the time as other tools in our tool belt. It's not a gun belt; it's a tool belt. The idea being that we're bringing more to the table than one perspective, one-dimensional thinking, and having the chance to do everything. I went from riding a bicycle to a motorcycle to doing these different jobs. So when you see them from all these different perspectives, you don't hesitate about what's the right thing to do. You have ideas on how to get to the end goal, and we want people. I mean, we're a 25-year run. If you want to retire, or if you do a drop now, it's 8 years after 25. So you're talking about over 30 years if you have to do this job. So do you want to just do one thing for 35 years? Or we want to go and do many different things. So we love that. And that's where we benefit. It enriches us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, from a parent perspective here, if something goes wrong. Something goes wrong. What is and again, we're early in the transition. So obviously there will be a way it was handled last year and a way it'll be handled this year. And they might look very similar, because I do know the sheriff has gone over plans with all the schools and all that beforehand. And again, it just goes to show you, our sheriff is already, when it wasn't her job, going over plans with schools. But to make a parent feel as much as we can talk about it, what's the broad, something happens on campus.
So, Sheriff Cook's passion is emergency preparedness and how you respond to those kind of incidents. So the first goal is going to be that we're going to set up with the school district to have a consistent message. So for parents, the first thing I would say is this: make sure you have download our Safer Watch app so you can, or make sure you're keeping tabs on our social media. But Safer Watch is probably the most efficient way to get information. Download that app and have that where it gives you alerts, and then also utilize whatever sources that the school district has, which I'll know a little bit more about in the future as I meet with the district superintendent and his aides or his assistants, excuse me. Whatever way they're notifying you, make sure you're up to date with that in your notification stream. That's going to be your best source. Don't listen to internet rumors. The idea is,
please don't. I mean, there was something that blew up on social media last year, or something like it might have been 4 years ago. Who knows? My memory's not that good. But it was one of those things that and I'm getting texts like, "Oh, did you this is going on?" And I'm like, I don't think this is real, and it wasn't real. It was just rumor that blew out of proportion something that really wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal. Let me say that wrong. Anything is a big deal, and when you're dealing with kids, but it was not what social media thought it was, and I'm sure you've seen that many times.
Oh yeah, well, if the kid says he's gonna bring his M1A1 Abrams tank to school and shoot the school up, that kind of thing, we know he doesn't have a tank. But if he does, I wanted to ride in the tank, by the way. But, they don't have that. But what the job is for the school professionals and the law enforcement professionals is to do a threat assessment and determine the validity of that. But when there's an active incident or there's and the spur of the moment issue or concern on campus, our job is to put that together in a way that we can get it out to you and it's consistent. We want the message consistent. We want it transparent. We want it timely. That's going to be the stake through it's going to be the very fast, very quick, response. And it's got to be accurate because we want to make sure that people hear something. And as soon as we have something to give, we're going to do it. And at first it might be something where it's a more generic, we have an incident at type of message. And then as information unfolds or is provided to us, then we will update that information so that everybody has the best. Because you know what? I have 3 daughters. Now they're out of school. So, again, I'm old, right? So when my 3 girls were in school, I had the luxury of being either over the schools or at least a detective or a sergeant or lieutenant. So when there was a problem, I was with my rifle on the school grounds, making sure my kid's school was safe. Most people don't get that option, but you have to be rest assured that our goal is that every one of those kids is like our own, and we're going to make sure that message gets out. You go to our social media sites, and you go to our Safer Watch app, and you could check our webpage, but Safer Watch again is the quickest. We will put out the information. We'll coordinate with the school district. They have a phone system that they send information out via telephone, so we'll make sure that our message and their message is relatively the same. At least they may have information that they have to divulge that's not related to law enforcement, but the actual concerning part will be there for them. And that's the best way to know. And be rest assured that at that time, our personnel, we have response plans in place for every school that break things down to the tiniest detail that I'm not going to go into. But the idea is that we've already discussed this multiple times. We've done it ever since Sheriff Cook has been in office. We have been going out to the schools and we have plans in place and people have trained on those plans and they're ready to respond.
Yeah, that's great. And so if you want to go back and listen to the podcast where we talked about some of this in the past with the current person in charge of the police who's retiring, I believe, and the school board police. Chief Wagner, yes. So we talked about what's currently in place. So, so you can start there, but remember that might change. I mean, there might be a few little adaptations as we move forward, but I think some of it will probably stay the same. Like, again, listen to Safer Watch. If you're told, don't go to this pickup area, don't go to that pickup area. Be a responsible parent and listen to what's going on. There might be a reason. There might not be a dangerous reason, but there could be a simple reason that you have to move to a different location.
Absolutely. It could be something as simple as that area just maybe they had a flood, or maybe the building's not good, or maybe that's not a place that you could reach by car for some crazy reason. But the idea being that if we can put that stuff out, and if you follow that, it does not take our deputies or personnel away from what they're doing on the scene. Because if we have to, and I get it, if my kid was in that school, and I would do anything to get there to help my daughter out. We'd all get that. But if we're stopping, if there's 1,000 kids in the school and we have 1,000 sets of parents come up in their cars and we have to deal with them, we're not dealing with the crisis. We'll have people there, but let's follow the plan.
Right. And rushing to school is not going to be the best thing for your kids, honestly. That's that, unless they say rush to school.
Right, exactly.
But short of that, and I don't think they're going to say that.
Well, that's what the problem is. We don't want you there. We want you someplace that's safe and someplace where we can control that environment for you while we do what we can to save your kids. Because that, first and foremost, our job is to protect the children.
Right. And I think we're in good hands. So let me think about this. I'm trying to think if there's any other topics you want to hit on before we close it out here.
I think we did a pretty thorough job. Again, this is an evolving process, and we'll have some more as everything develops. I would like to think that we'll have a good idea of where we stand with our school district officers who are coming over February, March, and then we're working on, as we speak, every area of our transition team is working on their things, and you'll know, like what we're going to do with even like some of the equipment. So that might be a good topic actually, since that comes up. So one of the things that Sheriff Cook and our team is committed to is to make sure that taxpayers don't pay twice for equipment. So every piece of equipment that officer has that we could use as a deputy sheriff, we're going to use. There's some things that obviously they wear a blue uniform, so we'll give them a green one. And but short of that kind of stuff, we're counting their bullets and we're counting their weapons and of every type that they have, and flashlights, and whatever it is we could bring over that we don't have to issue them is something less that we don't have to pay. So the promise to the taxpayers from Sheriff Cook and the team is that everything we do is going to be is as least impactful to a taxpayer as possible. We're not going to compromise the safety. We're not going to compromise our ability to respond. Like even for their cars, they drive the black cars with the striping for the school district. We're going to de-stripe the cars, and we're just going to put a ghost package of our striping on, and it'll be a very minimal cost. Their lights are a little bit different. We're just going to keep them because it's not that relevant in the big picture of things. So you're going to have a very minimal cost to convert a car, to bring it from one to another. And the commitment from the school district has been to make sure the cars are as ready as possible and up to date on every piece of service. So we won't even have to, it would be just literally de-striping, restriping, and giving them their keys back.
They look like they're very nice cars whenever I drive by one.
Oh, they are. They're really sharp, they're sharp, and we'll be glad to keep them in there and do that. But that's like when Sheriff Cook and her team went down and looked at it, we were even looking like at the cost for a shroud for the badge. And we were looking at every detail we could think of to give the most accurate cost for the transition over to the sheriff's office. So I think, we're going to stay true to our word on this. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be really good. It's going to be exciting. I think the officers will be re-energized by this new opportunity. They're going to make a little bit more money, it looks like, for them. So it's going to be a good opportunity for them. Thankfully, the sheriff was able to work with the commission and secure some raises for our people. So where we're not the lowest in the area in terms of pay. And I think that's huge for us. Our men and women do fantastic work, and I'm glad they're getting paid like they should. And we're very thankful to the BCC, the Board of County Commissioners, for working with the sheriff to get that done. We're going to continue all that, and it's exciting. Yeah,
it is. And I'll say this too. It's important for our listeners to understand that took honestly, in my opinion, a credible amount of courage from the school board to vote for this, for the Board of County Commissioners to support it. All too often, unfortunately, you see people that go, it's just too hard. I don't want to do it. And to go versus doing what I think is the right thing. And the right thing is sometimes not easy.
Oh no.
But
it usually isn't.
Right. It's usually not. So kudos to them for doing that. Great job for you. We're appreciative of you handling this transition.
I'm honored to have the opportunity. Honored.
Well, I think you're bright things are in store. Sounds great. All right, you're listening to Never Off Duty.